A new trailer for Armored Core 6 has just rolled onto the scene, and I have so much new gameplay to break down for you here, but this video will also get you up to speed with how old Armored Core games used to play, because I want everyone to understand just how far this series has come. So if you've never played an Armored Core game before, then this is the video for you. And even if you're familiar with the series, there are huge secrets in this trailer that you would have missed unless you watched it frame by frame. So let's break it down, but not before we catch up on the story. The trailer starts with our approach to Rubicon, which is this devastated planet that was essentially razed to ash with the outbreak of a new substance called coral.
We're close to Rubicon. Wake the dog up.
I think he's talking about us here. We do play as a mercenary for hire, after all.
Handler Walter verified. Activating cerebral coral control device.
It seems we even have a handler called Walter, and we're essentially being used as their attack dog. And coral, that new, dangerous, pink-reddish substance that was discovered on Rubicon, is playing a part in the cerebral control of our character, who is an augmented human, piloting an armored core.
Augmented human C4621 has awakened.
It's nothing new in the Armored Core series for the AC pilot to be augmented in some way. Throughout the series, there's often been something called the Human Plus program, which was this experimental procedure that cybernetically meshed the human with their Armored Core to improve performance. And then in Armored Core 4, there were Lynx pilots whose nerves were literally linked with their mech's electronics. So I assume something similar is the case here in Armored Core 6. We are almost certainly an augmented human because it gives us greater control of our mech. But speaking of control, let's talk gameplay. To date, I've played these 7 Armored Core games, so I'll be showing my clips from these games in order to get everyone up to speed and on the same page regarding how Armored Core has traditionally been played. Because in some ways, Armored Core 6 appears to be very similar to these older games, but in others, it appears to be very different. So the first thing I want to talk about is boosting. Boosting in Armored Core is when you press a button to activate your thrusters, which significantly increases your movement speed. In older AC games, you can either boost along the ground and try to avoid enemy fire that way, or tap the boost button again to enter a boosted flying mode. And this ability to fight in 3 dimensions, all while handling multiple weapons at the same time and managing a lot of different systems all at once, that is at the very core of Armored Core's combat. Now, in previous games, being airborne like this is demanding. It drains your energy bar, seen on the left here. Think of energy as the equivalent of the stamina bar in Dark Souls. Energy is drained by certain actions like moving with your boosters, or when you fire certain energy weaponry, or by activating unique abilities, and it's recovered passively whenever you're not boosting, especially if you're completely standing still, like this. But if you mess up and you completely drain your energy bar, your regen rate will be severely punished and enemies will make quick work of you while you stand there trying to get it back. Thus, it's extremely important to watch your energy in these games, and unless your AC is specifically built to be light with a powerful energy generator and efficient boosters, it's actually really difficult to achieve sustained flight in most of these games. In the first set of Armored Core games, which I consider to be all of these ones, efficient movement was achieved by doing something called bunny hopping, which required you to activate and deactivate your boosters like this. This allowed you to ascend and be avoidant of enemies, and then you could recover your energy as you free fall down, only to start the process again and maintain your momentum when you hit the ground, as long as you time it properly, your bunny hopping. But then in Armored Core 4, the series was revamped in a really big way, and mechs overall became faster, more energy efficient, and more airborne, so the whole bunny hopping thing wasn't really required. And in Armored Core 4, the player was even given a dedicated button for side boosting, which allowed you to trade a chunk of energy for this instantaneous speed boost in any direction. This change to the game was huge, and while I kind of missed the whole bunny hopping thing as I enjoyed doing that, Side boosting was new, and that also required a lot of skill and timing, and it just allowed the game to be played at a faster pace. And when I say faster, I really mean faster. Armored Core 4 requires crazy reflexes at times. It's frantic, it's dizzying the speed you play at, and that's especially true when you're fighting another mech that uses all of the same side boosting techniques as you do. And then there was Armored Core 5, which was way more grounded and way more weightier and very divisive from what I hear. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about boosting is because the big question for many fans was how fast Armored Core 6 would play. Would it have this methodical momentum like the first generation of Armored Core games, or would combat be frantic like in Armored Core 4? Or would things be more grounded and slow like in Armored Core 5? And now that we've finally got gameplay of Armored Core 6, we can answer those questions, and I think that Armored Core 6 kind of looks like it has elements of all of the previous Armored Core games. I can actually comprehend what's going on screen, so it can't be as fast as Armored Core 4, but it does retain the side boosting ability from Armored Core 4, so that's fantastic. There's some evidence in this clip that you can fly in a sustained manner, so maybe it's not really grounded like Armored Core 5 was. But then there's this heavy tank build that does look like it plays more like Armored Core 5, so maybe there is a bit of groundedness that depends on your build. There's a bit of everything here, but luckily for me the producer of the game has clarified, stating the average movement speed across the game is somewhere between Armored Core 3 and Armored Core 5, he says. But it does have these instantaneous bursts of speed and sudden changes of tempo, so combat can often reach the dizzying heights of, say, Armored Core 4. And according to Yamamura, this is achieved thanks to a button-activated movement skill called the Assault Boost. Assault Boost is an offensive action that helps close the gap between enemies, and lets you quickly go from long distance to close range. It will also provide some incredible chain abilities when fighting. Now most of the time we see the character assault boosting on the ground, but what about verticality? What about aerial combat? Well, in past games, a jump could be achieved by boosting from a standstill position, and that's something that we can see as well at a few points in the trailer, where the legs can play a clear part in the initial liftoff of your character. Speaking of jumping specifically though, there's a part in the trailer where the character actually does this enormous vertical leap, but if you look closely, they're actually doing this on a jump pad, which is not unlike the spirit springs that Torrent can use in Elden Ring. The 4 vertical lights here probably extend high into the air so that it's clear where these jump pads are located in the world, just like you can see spirit springs from far away as well. The fact that these jump pads are necessary at all suggests to me one of two things. Either aerial abilities are significantly reduced for all mechs across the board in Armored Core 6 compared to previous games, or it suggests to me that maybe aerial abilities are just significantly reduced for some heavier builds, so these jump pads might just be a way for all mechs to achieve verticality in the level and to be able to progress regardless if they have a heavy or light design. Which brings us to the topic of customization. So, Armored Core's gameplay doesn't really just start in the missions, it starts when you first build your mech in the garage. This is somewhere you return to all the time, and experimenting with mech designs and fine-tuning your build is a ton of fun when you start to understand the intricacies of all the parts and how they work together. But I didn't understand this when I first started playing Armored Core. At first, you go into the garage to shop for parts, and it's this intimidating chore because the options and the stats are utterly overwhelming in these games. When I started, I just wanted to put together a mech and get back into the missions. But it's funny, now that I've played 7 Armored Core games, I now understand a ton of the intricacies of building, and now it's the other way around. I don't build mechs so that I can do missions anymore. I do missions so that I can afford new parts and get back into the garage. Fine-tuning my mech to my tastes is a huge part of the joy for me now, and I get it. This is what Armored Core is about. It's about taking any mission and doing anything for that shiny new part you have your eyes on. And when I say do anything, I really do mean it. You can do some really awful things in these Armored Core missions just so you can be able to afford parts. It's great. Two of the most important parts in your armored core are your generator and your boosters. Put simply, generators determine how much maximum energy you have and how fast you regenerate that energy, and boosters determine the power of your thrust, the direction your thrust favors, and also how efficient that thrust is. And then also the dreaded attribute that you always need to be aware of is weight, because every part in Armored Core has a weight to it, and it's because of this stat that I would argue that the next most important part of your mech are its legs, because it's those legs that determine how much weight your AC can carry. Go over your leg's weight limit and you're gonna have a bad time. Typically, your legs determine whether you're a lightweight or middleweight or heavy build, but on top of that, legs can also give different properties to your mech. Just listen to this quote from the game's producer. With Armored Core 6, one area we focused on was to make sure that the customization aspect is not just about parameters going up and down and numerical values changing, but how these changes are reflected in the feel of the action. As much as possible, in particular, this is reflected by the leg parts, which control the AC's movement. And in the new trailer, we do see a variety of mechs where it's very clear that their legs are a huge part of the way they play. Take the tank with tread legs, for example. In previous games, I never found a use for tread legs. This is what it looks like using tread legs in Armored Core 3. But this is what it looks like using tread legs in Armored Core 6. These legs clearly fundamentally change the traversal method of the mech, allowing them to charge enemies and destroy them, and drift as well. Another familiar leg type to me were these quad legs, which traditionally have allowed the player to fire back-mounted weapons while moving, as seen here. With most other leg types, these back weapons require you to stand still. But in Armored Core 6's trailer, these quad legs can also do this. They can jump you high into the air, and then they transform into these additional boosters which seem to help this AC hang stationary in the air and deliver death from above. If sustained vertical flight actually isn't a big part of Armored Core 6, then these could be very unique indeed. Most clips in the trailer do show the player with standard bipedal legs, but even these do seem to have additional boosters attached to them, which might be cool. But these bipedal legs have to be my favorites from the trailer. They're not just bipedal legs, they're reverse-jointed bipedal legs, which is a type that has traditionally helped you with jumping and aerial movement, springing you further up into the air. So fittingly, we see this mech do an insanely fast jump dodge here, and these legs also seem to give them a unique attack. They do a dismantling kick here that is probably similar in function to the charge attack that we saw earlier with the tread legs, and it absolutely obliterates this wheel droid. This armored core might be my favorite one in the whole trailer. It's extremely lightweight and agile, and it's able to move behind this droideka with blistering speed, using an energy shotgun to blast them before they even know what hit them. Now, I've had fast ACs in previous games, and they're usually really hard to play, but this is on a whole nother level of fast ACs, and what makes this one special is its turning speed. Turning speed in Armored Core games is traditionally very slow. And yes, while you can choose parts in these games that increase your turning speed, and while yes, in Armored Core 4 you can perform that boost turn, it's still slow. But I'm excited to show that the boost turn clearly plays a big part again in Armored Core 6, and it's on a whole nother level, because blink and you'll miss it, literally. It took just 9 frames for these mechs to boost turn for that complete 180. 9 frames! And here, in just 11 more frames, the camera completely catches up as well, and it's now that I assume, 20 frames later, roughly, that the player is fully locked onto their target and able to attack. Maybe some series veterans can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is insane for Armored Core. But that's not all. So, the heads-up display is disabled in this trailer, so I can't say for sure, but I feel like the way the camera moves here might suggest that the player is actually locked on to this enemy in this clip as they turn. And when I say locked on, I mean that in the Souls sense, where you press R3 to lock onto an enemy and the camera just stays centered on them. If I'm right that you can lock on in this manner, that is also potentially huge for the series as well, because traditionally, lock on in Armored Core doesn't work like it does in Souls games. Instead, there's usually a big box in the middle of your screen that you have to control as you turn your mech with the right analog stick, and anything within that box starts being locked onto if it's within the box. The size and the shape and the speed and range of this lock-on is governed by a part of your Armored Core called the FCS, and different FCS parts have different sizes and shapes for the lock-on box, as well as different speeds and ranges that this box targets with. It's very different to Souls. You take a very active role in locking on. You traditionally don't just press one button and it's done. Now, Armored Core 4 did have a manual lock-on button that helped you stay locked on to certain enemies, but it was still pretty loose, and it would fall off if you weren't facing them properly, which happens a lot because they commonly get out of your field of view. So the fact that this Armored Core 6 mech and its camera is able to turn this fast and potentially retain lock-on the whole time, I think has huge implications for the gameplay. It also seems to be happening as well in this scene, as your AC floats around the enemy here. If you look closely, they're watching them the entire time, just smoothly, seemingly perfectly. So, while From Software might be making it easier to turn around and to control your mech, even if they do that, it doesn't mean the game is going to get easier. No. Knowing From Software, it just means that the game will have design space to be difficult in different areas, and I think I know where the game is going to get more difficult. So, from what I've played of Armored Core, single-player missions very rarely ever require you to actually read enemy movements, and they don't require you to really avoid their telegraphed attacks. These older games are not like the Souls games in that regard. At most, you'll be able to outmaneuver slow missiles at a distance, or try to outpace machine gun fire when it's closer up to you, and this is especially true in Armored Core 4 with its side boosting, but even then, you're so busy flying around most of the time and watching your energy, watching your ammo, staying at the optimal range for your weapons, and just firing two of them at once. You're so busy doing those things that you don't always have time to dodge things, and it's not completely required that you side boost everything and dodge everything, and watching for telegraphed attacks is really not much of a thing in these games, from what I've experienced. But that is clearly not the case in Armored Core 6. These enemies, especially the bosses, are using very telegraphed attacks here. For example, this enemy AC has a chain whip melee weapon with a vertical slam that I guarantee you can use your side boost to avoid. This enemy AC has a unique back unit that overboosts them forcefully forward into a linear lanced grab attack that our character narrowly avoids, only to then be caught by it moments later. That's another very clearly telegraphed attack. This spider-like mech has a slow laser beam followed by a pincer slam that the character boosts away from. Not to mention, there's this female voice that warns us to watch out.
Watch out!
And in another clip, warns us about a choral response from the generator. So I think these things might actually be mid-battle warnings, not unlike Sekiro's own attack warning system. And this boss might be the best example, though. It has these two giant club arms that rotate horizontally in one animation and slam vertically in another. I don't think I'm wrong when I say these attacks would not look out of place in a Souls game, and again, from my experience with Armored Core, these sort of attacks are not common in those games. This is new. We know from past interviews that From Software actually spends a ton of time in the Souls games designing enemy attacks and animations to be properly telegraphed to the player so that the player can recognize patterns and react appropriately. So I will argue that this is actually a huge design component of what makes a game Souls-like at all. I know the word Souls-like is overused and memed to death, but I think Souls-like combat is very much about the dodge roll, and the dodge roll only works if enemy attacks are very clearly telegraphed. So I think these telegraphed attacks are a Souls-like element. And on that note, I kind of want to call out that a lot of people criticized me for my last video on Armored Core 6. In that video, I speculated based on solid evidence at the time that Armored Core 6 would have some Souls-like elements. I argued that From Software have learned things from the Souls series that they will almost certainly apply to their storytelling and their combat design, and I stand by that statement. In fact, I think I'm being proven right with these telegraphed boss attacks, and potentially also with the new lock-on method as well. Man, you can tell I'm really defensive here, but like, many commenters misrepresented me as if I said that this would be Dark Souls, but with mechs, but I never said that. Again, I think this will still be an Armored Core game at its heart, but I'm confident that there will be some new elements that Souls fans will be quite familiar with. But in the end, the game's producer says it best. He says that Armored Core 6 is an attempt to take both the knowledge and experience gained from the development of our previous titles and combine it with the fun of mech customization that the Armored Core series has always embraced, and in this sense we hope to create a new mech action game that is worthy of modern From Software standards. Specifically, we're developing this game with an awareness of things that From Software has always embraced in its other action games, such as an intricate map structure, combat design that allows players to deal with enemies by carefully observing their movements, and the ability to overcome challenging situations with ingenuity and creativity. Anyway, moving on. So, the devs also make a clear point that melee weapons are a huge part of this game. So, let's talk about weapons in general in Armored Core. In these games, typically you have 4 main weapon slots. You have left hand and right hand, and then left back and right back. 2 of these slots are usually active at the same time, allowing you to dual fire a huge variety of weapon types. Sometimes you'll want to dual wield machine guns, others you might want to dual fire both missile slots on the back, or maybe you'll want one of each weapon type, or maybe you're this guy and you want your back slot to be taken up by an entire missile cage, or maybe you're this dude and you want to replace your back slots with an overboost unit. There's so much variety even just in this trailer alone. But one of the most common loadouts is to have, a ranged weapon in your right hand and a melee weapon equipped in your left hand. And in particular, that strategy seems to be the one that's making a big return here in Armored Core 6, because in the trailer we can see this diverse array of melee weapons, all with different characteristics. There's a familiar laser blade, yes, but then there's also a chain whip that has long range. There's a twin blade that does multiple strikes. There's an energy lance grab attack. There's a horizontal spinning cleave. There's a flamethrower on this enemy AC, not to mention the pile bunker and cluster bomb launchers that were seen in the cinematic trailer. There's so much diversity already. In previous games, melee weapons were typically just these simple blades that all shared the same attack animations, and while they were extremely damaging, they were typically also quite difficult to hit with. If something is flying or moving more than 5 kilometers per hour, then you're just gonna have a really bad time. It gets better in games like Armored Core for Answer, where your character really hones in on their targets, but until then melee weapons were usually something that you would use as a backup weapon for when you're out of ammo, or you might want them as a utility weapon to take out tanky opponents. Usually I preferred to dual-wield ranged weapons instead, whenever that was possible, as that was the optimal way I thought to deal damage in most missions. And while dual-wielding ranged weapons is clearly possible again in Armored Core 6 based on some of the loadouts that we can see here, I'm actually feeling tempted to incorporate melee weapons into my playstyle when I finally do play this game, especially if lock-on really is a lot more reliable like it is in the Souls games. Melee is said to be a big part of this newly combo-based combat. When answering a question on what's new in Armored Core 6, the producer states that in the trailer you may have also seen a part where the core is deployed by an AC to generate a shockwave, and the pile bunker is then used on an opponent who is reeling back from the shockwave. This kind of building combo with multiple weapons is an appeal of AC6's unique assembly and combat. And in another response, Yamunori encourages players to make use of something called the Stagger system in order to break the posture of enemies so that you can get close for a melee strike. I think that's awesome. A Stagger system sounds like exactly what Armored Core needs to add to give this ebb and flow to the combat in some fights. In early games, Fights sometimes just feel like bunny hopping in a circle around an opponent and pelting them with ammunition until they die, but having a posture bar and a health bar should help fights to become more dynamic and have moments where you have to get close to them and moments where you have to back off and things like that. Remember, this game is now being directed by the legendary Masaru Yamamura, who I respect a lot personally because they were the lead game designer of Sekiro, and I believe they were responsible for Sekiro's combat system as well, and Sekiro had my favorite combat system, and notably it had the Stagger system in it, and this also went on to inspire Elden Ring's own Stagger system, and now it seems Armored Core is getting one as well. Yamamura states, "Another addition to the series combat is a stagger element. If an AC takes too many hits over a short period of time, its altitude control system will be overloaded, making it vulnerable for a short time. Both continuous hits and big powerful strikes will cause stagger damage, encouraging you to keep up the pressure on the opponent. This damage inflicted to an enemy's stagger gauge varies from weapon to weapon. It can also be affected by factors like distance, adding additional strategy in equipping and using these armaments in combat." Another part that I'm extremely curious about are shields, which are utilized by mechs in the trailer here, 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 and here. Now, shields have been in Armored Core games before as a type of extension part, and while I've personally only tried them once, I didn't like them. I didn't feel like they were super impactful. So you could either choose from solid shields that were heavy or energy shields that drained your energy bar when you took a hit, and in this trailer all of the shields we saw were energy shields that were attached, interestingly, in a back weapon slot. They come out here literally within one frame, which is insanely fast, and it seems like the player is holding them up manually like they do in Souls games, though it's hard to be sure at this stage. Speaking of extension parts, I wonder if an extension part is responsible for this action in the trailer where there's this scan pulse ability that detects enemies behind walls. Or perhaps it's like in Armored Core 5 where there's this dedicated button that enters you into a passive scan mode and allows you to mark enemies hiding behind walls. Locking onto enemies while they're behind walls is a staple of the series ever since the first game. It's a great technique if you have missiles equipped because you can lock onto enemies with your missiles from behind a wall and then dash out, shoot your missiles, and go back into hiding. And in fact, in this Armored Core 6 trailer, we see these shoulder missiles react to the lock-on, and the missiles prep as the sensor picks up the enemies, which is a great little detail. But it's hard to know at this stage where all these utility items like scanners and shields are attached. In past games, utility items could exist on your back, they could exist as extensions, they could be inside your AC, and sometimes even armor parts themselves have utility functions built into them. For example, head parts often have an inbuilt radar function. Torso parts often have deployable drones or overboost functions, and there are even some weapon arms that straight up replace your standard arms with cannons. Finally, in the cinematic trailer, we see an EMP attached to what seems like the core of the unit, so that might even be an option. We see this explosion in actual gameplay as well. It reminds me of Assault Armor in Armored Core 4, which was this last resort attack that consumes your primal armor and weaponizes it and deals massive damage to the opponent at your own expense. What's funny is that in this clip you can see an enemy mech attempting this same animation, but they did it a little bit too late and we get ours off first.
Callsign Raven. Priority subject for termination. High on the list.
Why hide behind another's call sign?
Despite being called Augmented Human C4-621 earlier in the trailer, there's clearly a bit of intrigue behind our character because we're also addressed with another name in that same trailer, a call sign, Raven. This is an extremely nostalgic word for longtime fans of the series, as in most of the early games, the pilots of Armored Cores were referred to as Ravens, and the home hub of all Raven operations were usually called some variation of a Raven's Nest, which doubled as an organization that mediated the Ravens' contracts with various employers. But regardless of whether our Raven is a reference here or whether it's something more, Armored Core 6 does take place in a new setting, and From Software have been very clear that you don't need knowledge of prior Armored Core stories to understand what's going on in this new game. This is because Armored Core 6 takes place in a future where interstellar travel is said to be commonplace, so events from past games are going to be very removed from this distant star system called Rubicon 3. But no matter how far they are away, it seems this universe can't escape the greed of megacorporations. These companies can't resist the siren song of the coral and continue to wage war for it, despite its destructive properties having reduced this planet to ash, contaminating its climate and turning it extremely cold. Therefore, the world that we're exploring is multi-layered. It has these shining mining constructs and energy farms that are built on top of the hollowed-out industrial ruins of the old world, which is defended by the indigenous forces of the planet, even now. Reminds me a bit of my displate that I helped design called Future Souls, link in the description. But man, I'm so excited for this game now. It's been really fun learning to love the old games, just knowing that a new one is coming and that there's this purpose to playing all of these. And I think if you have played these old games, then you will also sense just how much this series will benefit from the touch of modern From Software. Even Miyazaki himself has said that past him is jealous of the sheer budget and resources that From Software can now bring to bear on their projects. It's clear that older Armored Core games wanted to have the player exploring these vast subterranean structures, and they wanted the player to marvel at the scale of the world because they were really ambitious with their old games, but in reality, you end up exploring the same tunnels and you end up exploring the same sorts of open worlds, and they all have these repeated assets. Just compare that to the incredible set pieces and assets that we're seeing in this trailer, and the color and the vibrancy and the quality of these mechs and everything we're seeing, and I'm just so excited for them to be able to fully realize and achieve what they set out to do so many years ago with Armored Core. Also, some of the coolest moments for me in these early Armored Core games was when you earned new parts for your AC during missions, rather than just buying these parts in the shop. This could be done by finding these parts out in the level or by defeating enemy armored cores, and sometimes you could even get them just by completing missions or by S-ranking missions. With these clearly more detailed levels in Armored Core 6 and with the familiar branching mission structure of the games confirmed to be making a return, I really hope that discoverable parts make a return as well, because it really is exciting to experiment with new parts, and there's no place I prefer to put weapons to the test than in the arena. Best parts of Armored Core games for me have been fighting other mechs, and the arena is essentially boiled down to that exactly. So I was happy to read that arenas are returning in Armored Core 6. There's essentially going to be these arena simulators where you can train against other Armored Cores that you might encounter out in your missions. Not to mention also PvP arenas are confirmed for Armored Core 6 as well, and I guarantee that's something that I'm going to get heavily addicted to when the game comes out. Also, on the topic of storytelling, I feel like From Software's storytelling has come so far since they started making these Armored Core games. I'll be honest, the old Armored Core games do not grab me with their storytelling. The mission briefings and the cutscenes just put me to sleep. I end up just wanting to play the game and skip through them. The best moments for me, though, in regards to storytelling is when characters are actually bantering in the middle of combat, or when the female voiceover gives you mid-mission information, or when she debriefs you at the end. I also love being allied with other ACs and hearing about their struggles or how they boast during combat. I love that aspect of these games. I love that storytelling. And I can tell that those systems are returning in Armored Core 6 as well, so that's really great. But I've talked long enough. Let's end on the final note of the trailer, which I speculate might be reminding us that we are a lone mercenary, a slave to the highest bidder, used to achieve their goals.
Let's see how far they can fly. on borrowed wings.
Subscribe for more Armored Core content, and I'll see you next time.